Mandelson lied. He lied to me, he lied to the nation, and he's let down my party. And my God, what a performance.
Hello, welcome to Coffee House Shots. I'm James Heal and I'm joined today by Tim Shipman and Isabel Hardman. Now, Isabel, that was quite a PMQ session we've just witnessed, right?
It was, and it wasn't just quite a PMQ session because of the subject matter, Peter Mandelson, or indeed because Kemi Badenoch was getting another go at the Peter Mandelson affair, which she'd done really well on last September, but also because it just highlighted so many of Keir Starmer's weaknesses, his tendency to hide behind process, the fact that he can very easily get sidetracked into defending the honour of the cabinet secretary rather than talking about victims. And also, I suppose, as somebody who's writing a book on public inquiries, I was just delighted that we had another call for a public inquiry from Sir Ed Davey. So for me, it ticked a lot of boxes.
I think of the 6 questions, I mean, it was the third answer when it was Kemi Badenoch was asking him, were you aware of the fact that relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein had continued after the conviction? And he finally admitted, yes, we knew, and yes, the security service knew. That seemed to be the key omission, didn't it?
That was the key omission, and he knew he was going to have to make it after the Badenoch had opened her mouth for the first time. But Starmer was able, with the first question, to say, here's some stuff you didn't know. We've stripped him of the Privy Council. I've been on to the palace, la-di-da-di-da. Here's some news. Obfuscate news, and then in the second one there was more process and regret, and just the giant indignation. I mean, you talk about Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, as the Prime Minister referred to him throughout. This man who has lied to me, and what was glorious about this, him defending the honour of the Cabinet Secretary. So just to explain, Kemi Badenoch basically said, we need independent oversight of the documents that you're releasing, because you're saying you won't release some of them for national security reasons. Well, frankly, we don't believe you. We think there's going to be a cover-up. And Starmer says in response to that, but the Cabinet Secretary will be overseeing it, will not be a political decision. Well, everybody knows the Cabinet Secretary is appointed by the Prime Minister. Yeah. In fact, this Cabinet Secretary, there isn't a single other person in government who would have appointed him, apart from this Prime Minister. He owes his job entirely to Keir Starmer. Cabinet Secretaries are part of the team and will do what they need to do to please the Prime Minister and to avoid embarrassing the sort of order and dignity of the Cabinet Office and all of that. So Badenoch quite rightly said, bring in the Intelligence and Security Committee, they can make these decisions, they're properly independent, not like the Cabinet Secretary. And dear old Starmer went, well, I'm really quite upset that she's impugning the integrity of the Cabinet Secretary. And actually, you know that he believes this. He's genuinely offended by it. It's some kind of weird propriety in Starmer that he's actually upset that Kemi Badenoch is doing that. But take a step back. This is the guy who's sort of portraying himself as this, someone I'm defending even the honour of the Cabinet Secretary. This is the bloke who's admitting in answer 3 that he knew that Mandelson was mates with Epstein, and frankly accepted quite a lot of his assurances that it wasn't true. And now that it's been proven that, shock horror, Peter Mandelson may have downplayed that when he was seeking the job of His Britannic Majesty's Ambassador to the United States, how quickly we forget, that he might not have exactly been forthcoming about that. Mandelson lied. He lied to me. He lied to the nation, and he's let down my party. And my God, what a performance!
That betrayed the country line, I thought, was really strong. I mean, he was essentially saying he was like Kim Philby.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's people going around saying this is the worst political scandal since at least Profumo, if not Philby, and who knows what before that.
I think Mandelson's going rate was higher than Philby's.
Although, isn't it? As no one else pointed out, that there seems to be an osteopath both in Profumo and
Stephen
in this.
Ward and Ronaldo, yeah. I would also just make the point about Cabinet Secretary as well. I said, how dare you denigrate the Cabinet Secretary? That's my team's job to do that.
Yes, exactly. They spend their entire time briefing how useless he is. And not one of them has ever explained to me why Keir Starmer appointed him to start with. Well, maybe we've got the answer now, because he will run an upstanding independent inquiry that will release only the correct documents. Perhaps that's why Wormhole was picked to start with.
I think this is one of Keir Starmer's sort of fatal flaws as a person, as a character, is his obsession with his own propriety and occupation of not just the moral, but I think also the professional high ground, in that we see every week at PMQs, he lectures Kemi Badenoch on what questions she should have been asking, as though he had done such a ripping job as leader of the opposition. But he also today was saying, well, when I was tabling humble addresses, I always included exemptions for national security. So again, he's sort of saying, well, actually, I was just better at my job than you. And Maybe, I mean, I genuinely think he believes this rather than it being one of those sort of manifestation things that people say in the mirror and hope this
Totally
going to happen
believes
to
it.
And it's actually, I think, a real flaw because, and I would say this because I'm a pessimist, I think if you have a really low opinion of yourself, then actually you tend to notice where you're about to trip up. Whereas if you have a high opinion of yourself, you simply cannot see the problems you're creating for yourself in believing that you're doing the right thing when manifestly not doing the right thing.
I think Boris Johnson a lot of the time knew how people saw him and kind of played on that. Starmer, has this affliction. He literally cannot see how other people see him. Go right back to the start of his premiership. He could not conceive, because he knows he is an honourable, upstanding man, that taking a bunch of free specs and free clothes for his missus might be seen by the British public as a bit questionable. And he was totally indignant about that. And, we are a centre-right podcast. This is probably worth making the generic point that this is an affliction that I think afflicts the left rather more than the right. Yeah. There is a sort of belief in their own righteousness, which in the end forgives, the ends justify the means is something that more often grips the Labour Party in problems than it does the Tory Party. The Tory Party know how they're seen. Yeah. Part of their appeal to the electorate is that they're cynical bastards who will get the job done. They fall out of favour when they fail to get the job done. But this level of piety it's not fake. It's wholly genuine, and it's totally in keeping with the worst expressions of the left and of Keir Starmer in particular.
And I mean, the reaction in PMQs, I mean, just watching it, the sense of decline, the sort of momentum moving away from Starmer was palpable, wasn't it? Yeah. You saw it on those faces. You saw how half-hearted the questions were. I think Richard Holden's now tweeted the fact that the Labour PPS were saying we've got to get the benches full today. It just maybe feels like it's all coming apart, doesn't it, Isabel?
It really does. And I mean, it's always notable when an aide is named and defended at Prime Minister's questions. That's not really supposed to happen. But Morgan McSweeney has come up before. He's been defended. I think that was probably, I don't say the most fulsome defence because that suggests that Starmer thinks he's about to throw him under the bus. But I think that was probably the most enthusiastic defence we've had from Starmer and the least enthusiastic response from the Labour backbenches. Starmer pointed out that Morgan McSweeney was the man who helped Starmer change Labour and bring the party back into government. Those words should stir something in the sort of chests of Labour MPs. Instead, they're all thinking, yeah, well, he served his purpose, get him out, basically.
Exactly, and this is now the biggest stick with which to beat Morgan McSweeney. A lot of people on the left of the Labour Party did not like the direction of travel that McSweeney was steering Starmer in. They've reasserted their control. McSweeney, to some degree, not totally, has lost influence and certainly is not the power that he was 6 months or a year ago. But Starmer, I think, again, is defending him, thinking he can save McSweeney. And I think... I don't know definitively whether that's the case. There's a lot of people who would say, the day Starmer chucks McSweeney overboard is the day he's walking the plank the following day himself. But Starmer genuinely, I think, thinks he can save McSweeney. And most people in the Labour Party I speak to do not now think that's the case and think that the day after the local elections in May will be the same as the day after the 2017 general election, where Theresa May's cabinet walked in and said, you can keep your job, but you've got to get rid of these terrible aides that you've got, who in that case were Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill, both rehabilitated since, one should stress, both personally and professionally. Nick Timothy back in the shadow cabinet and going on to great things. Fiona Hill, a roaring success in business. Both of them speaking to me again, very excitingly. And... McSweeney looks like the obvious casualty, both in terms of what he represents politically, and there's also this kind of weird subconscious thing. Labour MPs don't really like winning. McSweeney sort of forced them to win and made them make all these dirty compromises, and they don't like that. Now they're in government, they just want to rule and they want to do what they came into government to do, which will be a bunch of expensive things that the government, that the country can ill afford. And McSweeney will go and earn a lot of money consulting, and at some point before the next general election, someone will phone him up and say, "Can you come and save us?" And my guess is he'll tell them where to stick their
Yeah.
off her at that point, but we'll see.
And just on a final point, first of all, we had while we're doing the recording the news that the Angela Rayner, of course, is back. She, having said she's not dead yet.
Not dead, more than not dead.
She's called for
Still got some game.
She has. It called for the Intelligence and Security Committee to investigate this rather than the Cabinet Secretary. So maybe she's more on Kemi's side on this than Keir's.
And it should be said as well, James, this is a canny bit of, as Isabel observed, this was Badenoch's first good performance on Mandelson back in September. That was the first time she'd really cracked PMQs. So this is like sort of returning to do the greatest hits. But the questions were sensible. They had a good approach. Try and pin him down on the one question that's awkward for him, which they successfully did. Come up with a wheeze in terms of the loyal address, and it was quite interesting too how she was lecturing Labour MPs and sort of saying, you're new, you may not actually know that what your government is telling you is nonsense. It's already implicit in a humble address.
And that question about the whip as well, walking through the voting lobbies, will they have the whip removed or not?
Will they be kicked out if they defy you? And by the way, it's already basically implicit in a humble address that you don't release things that are national security damaging. You don't need an amendment to do that. So she was kind of
coaching them.
All of that was quite effective. And this whole idea of don't leave it to the Cabinet Secretary, that was all planned. Get the ISC involved, makes it difficult for Starmer, makes the cover-up more complicated.
And he loves a committee as well, doesn't he? There's all the Intelligence and Security Committee.
I mean, how delicious that Angela Rayner, not in the Cabinet, has seen fit, presumably reflecting a large body of opinion on the Labour backbenches, to stick her foot into this one, her very expensively heeled shoe, and say, I think we're going to cause a bit of mischief here.
And I think also just in terms of getting to the bottom of things, the ISC is a much more potent vehicle than the full public inquiry that Ed Davey was asking for. We probably will end up with that because, why not?
But I love the Lib Dems. They always call for it.
Full public inquiry. It's like a weekly
after they've called for Parliament to be recalled, but Parliament is already here.
Anything to help Isabel's book sales. But.
Well, yes, and writing it as well. But I think
you might get an extension if this one starts kicking off.
Don't tell my publisher. I think the ISC is a serious vehicle, not least because it doesn't turn into a circus because it meets in private and it can decide the disclosure of the documents in a measured way. I'm sure you agree with me, Tim, that when MPs go onto that, they're at their most serious, actually.
I mean, sometimes even pompous. But they take on this idea that it's a sort of independent body that must hold the government to account.
Yeah.
They're mostly MPs in their dotage who've been ministers, who are no longer subject to patronage. Kevin Jones, Lord Beamish, who is the chairman now, is a proper old, Labour right bloke, union man from the northeast, does not suffer fools.
From the Roy Mason School, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to, if he takes a call from Downing Street asking him to do something or other, I know exactly what he'll tell them. I mean, I remember him once telling me that David Miliband's, one of his sidekicks, phoned up Lord Beamish, Kevin Jones as he then was, saying, I'm calling on behalf of David Miliband. This was when he was hawking for votes. And he replied, if David Miliband wants my vote, he can phone me himself. That's the kind of shrift, short and sweet, that he tends to give. David Miliband never did bother to call, and that's one of the reasons why he never became leader of the Labour Party. But if Starmer picks up the phone, I think Jonesy will tell him where to get off.
And for me, this month is my 5th anniversary at the Spectator. One of my earliest memories at the Spectator was watching the Patterson story unfold, and Owen Patterson, that vote on privileges, etc. And for me, watching all this today at PMQs brought back a lot of memories of all of that.
Oh, a lot of beautiful memories. What a 5 years.
Well, it was the beginning of the end, which may be a parable. And, that was an occasion when the Prime Minister asked his backbenchers to do something that was fundamentally stupid and they weren't terribly comfortable doing. And that undid a lot of Boris Johnson support. And then when the Partygate stuff started dropping and other problems came along, he was in a very much weaker position to defend himself. And it feels like we may even have passed that point with Starmer. This could be, we're certainly past the end of the beginning, and we may well be towards, we may even be past the beginning of the end. We may be well along the middle of the end at this point.
Yes, and it might not be 1940, but Gallipoli instead. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Tim. And thank you for listening to Coffee House Shots.